Thank you, Anup. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shurjo Narayani, for a wonderful invitation, and so nice to meet the extended family. You know, I really tell people, travel to other communities, other centers, go on pilgrimage, and of course, keep your eyes open, but keep your heart open, because what I have seen, you know, each person, let's say through a reading, by seeing the Master, Swamiji said each devotee had a perspective. And what I noticed on a very physical plane to describe is, I found physical similarities in many devotees, and I'm speaking of the community in Italy and in US, from devotees in India. And I would say, oh, this person looks like just like that devotee, and they both should meet. Perhaps they'll find a connection. She's my sister, he's my brother. And then somebody would look like, you know, my father. I mean, on a minuscule level, Dr. Amar in Pune, and compare his picture with my father. Both are doctors, both are physicians, both keep this mustache, both have a defense background. And I'm not working with my father, you know, medically, but I'm working with Dr. Amar. But we three are friends. And there is a lot of similarity, and you wonder what's going on. So on one level, Divine Mother gives hints, like Babaji, they say, looked like a young Lahari Mahashaya and all. So anyway, when you travel, when you see other centers, when you feel the spirit, when you hear how they're doing, it's the same joy, but a slightly different, unique expression. And that is also how God is working through us. Swami used to always marvel. He said, don't try to intellectually understand the truth. It helps us. It takes us to a certain point. But he said, beyond that, the true intellectual person will also be in awe. That, oh my Lord, this is so much more than my intellect could have grasped. And he said at that time the heart starts opening, and we start developing devotion and understanding. True understanding comes from the heart. So then I was thinking what to share, you know, in Mumbai today. And recently some of us from Chennai, and I had joined them from Pune. We were on Babaji's cave pilgrimage. And because it was my first interaction with many new devotees over there also, the Dharmarajanji asked me if I'll share about my time with Swamiji, or especially, actually he said, some lessons you learned. And I said, my goodness, I have always thought about that for myself. We should always do daily introspection. And often the yardstick you compare with is a person you have respected the most. You have met someone, some book you have read. And of course, for me, often it is Swamiji. You keep a picture and you say, okay, is he happy? Did I live up to the expectations? What's happening? What's not happening? But I said I've rarely, shared, because you can share it in story form, but then really what you're sharing is what you learned. And I thought of a few things, and I said, hey, that's nice for me to meditate also, because I learned a lot just in those few hours when I had to prepare. So I want to share a few things, friends, about, you know, the time with Swamiji, because of course, remember, just like us, he had a little bit time with the Master. You know, Gyandev ji, who was in Mumbai also recently, but in Pune then, he was sharing that, he said, we've just gone through a very interesting century. He said about 100 years ago, teachings of yoga were one-on-one, or with a small group. Think of Sri Yukteswarji's ashram. Think of Lahari Mahashaya, Master writes, by ones and twos and threes they would come to him. Babaji and Lahari Mahashaya, one-on-one. Here it's 1 on 100, 1 on 45 every 6 weeks. They were saying that the hunger has increased. Master had predicted, he said there'll come a time, the shortfall of teachers will be there, people would want. So we are so lucky that we have found the teachings while the teachers are available. But he did say that, you know, people's curiosity and hunger will come to that point, because as you know, we're in this ascending age. But the point I was trying to make was, in these times, we have this ability, the good karma of, you know, sharing these teachings and receiving it. And when you think it of from Swamiji's perspective, this is something I felt, you know, this is the first time I met him. Of course, I saw him in an auditorium first. He was releasing the Bhagavad Gita in Delhi. And the good thing was, I had a very nice, you might say, stage to compare him with others. It was not my intention, but just in that event, Sheila Dikshit was there. This is being recorded. Of course, many dignitaries were there, other spiritual leaders were there. Who were those dignitaries? But the thing was, that the moment he came, and he was the most feeble of them physically, he was the most aged. And I had no experience till that time of spiritual teachings, but the first impression was, oh my goodness. Even before he spoke, there was like, oh my goodness, this man has lived. He was like walking the talk. So you didn't need the talk. You saw his walk. You knew. Wonderful. This is the fruit if you can practice the teachings. And then, of course, came to know that the center is in Gurgaon. I came there, saw him. But when ultimately I joined the Sangha, a few days later, Swami was establishing the work in Pune, and he called the monks and he said, I'd like to meet you all before you go to Pune. So I was in that group, and was a chance to see him very closely, like I'm seeing Anup over here, very closely. So, I remember the first thing I noticed was, of course, brilliance in every regard. That I had not, as a doctor, I had not seen an elderly person of that degree stage with having so much vitality, radiance, joy, clarity. So I said, wow, what's happening? And now over the years, I can understand some of the things we read in the books as having, like, if he was the portrait, I now understand, you might say, what God had created, what he had chiseled. As Anup was reading that, you would think, oh, why can't God paint instead of chiseling? But Master said that he himself was chiseled under the hammer of Sri Yukteswar Ji. That the ego that we have is so long been with us. Think of a favorite shirt. I remember when I was a kid, I had a shirt which said happy on it. And naturally people praised that shirt. I liked it. Now we grow and the shirts stay the same. But I wanted to wear that shirt all the time. Till one day I was able to wear it, but I was not able to take it out. And I was trying like this, that, and finally I went to my mom in the kitchen. I said, and she pulled it and she gave it to our maid's son. That attachment can develop, on many levels. And the ego, we may not even know ego, but what is the ego? The sense of I. And that can get so attached that Master, that's why he said, of course, through love, through wisdom, understanding, introspection, try to give chinks. But he said the major blows come sometimes as rude surprises. And he said we should also have that calmness and maturity, that Lord, thank you. For me being able to withstand that and then coming out more beautiful, as that reading said. So I remember that when I saw Swamiji, I said something very special is happening, and now I can say this, that of course he had very sincerely, as we all know, worked on himself. He was keen, he was enthusiastic, he wanted nothing else. He was very happy when Master, Divine Mother, life corrected him. And he was saying, I'm so grateful. But I think the major component of what he had become was, as Master says, 75% of the work is God and Guru. Because that I had not seen. I had seen many dedicated doctors, people, industrialists, politicians. You say, oh wow, what commitment. But had God been able to work on them, polish them, chisel them to His will? Imagine God saying, this is how I would like it. How special that thing must be. Instead of us saying, this is how I like it. And we are often confused, no, that's how I like it. Oh no, and that's what the reading was saying, likes and dislikes confuse us. It's good to have some, it's good to have sattvic likes, because it's a directional approach, but ultimately safest is he who says, Lord, give me the strength that I be able to receive your guidance and to be able to walk that. Because somebody asked Swamiji towards the very end of his life, Sir, how did you accomplish so much? And he used to very simply say, I have not done anything. God and Gurus have done it all through me, which is true. That's the highest expression of any work. Sir, how do you pray? That person specifically asked. You see, We are all very fond of secrets, knowing the secrets of great people. You should also be like that. And so somebody said, "Sir, give me a secret. How do you pray?" He gave it. He said, "Every morning when I wake up, I pray to God through my Guru. And I say to him, may thy will be done, not mine." Isn't that sweet? He says, "May thy will be done." And then, as Narayani and others would tell you, who were with him closely, the people he would meet, the offers that would come, the challenges that would come, the opportunities, that fluidity, that, like we read in the Raj Yoga, the first chakra is commitment, solidity, firmness, loyalty, yes. But after that, second chakra is, once you have that, can you try to tune into God's will? Because we would like it to be very direct, clear, obvious. But God's voice is silence. And in meditation and such, we feel it. So when I saw Swamiji, I said, wow, this is what happens when God has worked on you for a lifetime. And I said, Amen. May we also see that day when we would have been worked upon like that. The second thing I'd like to share is, which I am again realizing after many years, especially as I'm reading his books, which earlier we didn't have in print or had, but you read a book sometimes and you said, this chapter was not there when I read it. I mean, some stories we remember, but see, stories are easy to understand, principles, the mind is just not open sometimes. And what I'm seeing was, of course, the breadth of his wisdom, understanding, knowing, maturity, you might even say the skills he had. I mean, if he went into singing, what devotion, what depth. If he went into writing on art, how did he know so much? Leadership, again, from one spectrum to the other, meditation, discipleship, relationships, secrets for men, women, married people, and you're like, wow, how much? So, and I realized that actually it's very similar. Now we can easily say he was special. What can I do about it? Swami used to say, well, never say that, only God or the avatars are special. He said, they have come, they give us a glimpse to the degree is useful, beneficial for us, that if we have that aspiration on different, we don't always have to write that many books and all. We have to say, what does God want to do through me? And over there, I want to mention something in medically we call range of movement. If you have had a stiff shoulder, the doctors will say, do the full range of movement. And in Kriya, Master says that is called a full breath. Ideally he said about 30 seconds. What is the full range of movement of Seva? Unconditional willingness. It doesn't matter what I have to do. And look at Swami's life again. Whenever philosophy gets confusing, find an example from Swamiji's life that it doesn't matter. Once he went to some place and the two monks were leading energization. And Swami said there were so many people who came that they had not planned a elevated platform, stage. And they were in the open area, but there was a car parked over there. So this other monk said, Walters, get up on the car. And Swamiji is up on this car, and there's a picture also somewhere, and they are energizing. And you see that on the car, in the open, other things, you may have to, in the beginning, think about it. He said, he was alone, one-man organization. I used to write the advertisement, put a small advertisement based on the budget he had, attend the phone, send letters at that time, arrange the class, give the class, thank people. Isn't that amazing that God sometimes makes us go through these tests and challenges, which we would say, why, Lord? But what did Christ say to Saint Teresa of Avila? You know that story? I read it in some detail. She was close to 80 years old. She was a saint in Spain. And she was carrying a tumor also, they say now, probably based on how the illnesses were described. And at some point, she was inspired by God to go to a monastery, which she had established many. And he said, go and inspire the nuns. But the nuns told her, Mother, it's winter, it's raining outside, we can go in the morning. She said, no, let's go now. Get the horse carriage. And they got into the carriage, they're all going. They had to cross a river which was in very high flow. And she said, no, God has told me I have to reach there. I will reach there. Don't worry, go through it. And they went through those waters, cold waters, and they were swept away. Everybody, horse and carriage, all in water, swept away, people struggling for their lives. And suddenly she came to consciousness and she saw herself on the belly on the other side of the river, slightly perplexed and looking up, and Christ is standing there and looking at her and smiling. She's like, oh, he said, oh, Teresa, don't feel too badly. This is how I treat all my friends. She said, my Lord, that is why you have so few. Swamiji said, Master used to love this story. That you go home or you start your meditation, Lord, bless me. And recently we have been visiting often their place, they come and say, Lord, bless me. And the message came from their side, please pray more, nothing is working. And then I went to their house, they said, no prayers are coming from the temple, none are coming from your house, none are coming from the center or kitchen. What's going on? I said, calm down. Sometimes you ask for blessings. And the Lord says, time to sharpen the blade. Where's my hammer and the fire? And he said, oh my. But of course, joy comes too. And that's why the spiritual path, and I want to close with this, what can be another range of movement for us? Of course, it is human tendency to expect quick results, shortcuts, especially in our times. Shortcut on the desktop or screen, something like this. Shortcut for everything. And Master gave us a very quick path in Kriya Yoga, but we want a shortcut for Kriya also. But there, I want to say that let your entire life, and as Jayaji once said, let in this life your every breath be for God to use as he, she would like to. That is also a range of movement Swami had. As the song says, devotees may come, devotees may go, but I will be thine always. That, okay, let's see what is on the other side. If Christ meets you on the other side, and Master did say her clothes were dry. So let's keep that in mind, friends. And again, these are the things I learned from Swamiji. Of course, you all have read his life too. The tests would come and he would say, as Ananda Mumbai told him, that's your Guru's grace. He said, in that moment, I couldn't feel that when he was expelled and he was alone, he said, how can grace take such a form? But look at us, look at the center. We would not have been here if Divine Mother would not have given that huge hammer blow to him. That we do not know. As long as our intentions, aspirations, desire, prayer to Guru is correct, to the best of our ability, let's say, God will use that. A parent never forces the child to learn something he or she is not ready for. So, keeping that calmness, keeping the devotion firm, because devotion ultimately is not how much we love God. It is like that. But like somebody very wisely said in the Mahabharata, Ramayana, that if you love God, maybe you should ask him what he wants you to do and not keep telling God what he should give to you. So that's a nice way to approach devotion. And I want to say what a wonderful thing is happening over here in Mumbai. Beautiful meditations and sadhanas and seva, guidance. In a place like Mumbai, no better example you can compare this, and that can be introspection. What do we have? And then as Swami used to say, Lord, what is your will for me today? How can I help take the teachings out? How can I share the books? How can I bring people here? How can I go to the corporates, which I think Rajesh and Shurjo are trying to do. You know, recently we went to the Indian Army in Pune, and they were so happy after some workshops. They said, come and do Kriya classes. Come and do a summer camp for the children, and so many wonderful things. So don't underestimate your ability to serve as a bridge. Jai Guru.